And hello, everybody. It's 2 out of 4 of the SpiffyNeedleGeeks once again, and welcome to what I would consider a very special discussion for one good reason only. If you haven't been following Dani on Twitter, Dani, just out of the blue, decided to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, something I never would have expected for her to do.
And Ryan, if I may say, the next time we meet, be it at a convention or anything, you have my permission to smack me upside the head for not watching this sooner.
Oh, no, I would never do that. Come on.
I'm just saying. You have my permission. You have the power to do that.
God damn it.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's cool. But anyways, like from what Dani has told me and probably the many followers on Twitter or whatever, as of this recording, she just recently finished part 1 of JoJo Phantom Blood. So Dani figured, hey, you know what? Why not go ahead and make a discussion or geek out about part 1 of JoJo?
Okay. Actually, funny story. So, I know we've been very lax on discussions and everything, and a major reason for that, if not the main reason, is it has been getting increasingly difficult for us to even get together on Discord and everything, because we've all got we're all busy with radically different schedules and everything. I mean, it's like, hell, we really only have like one day out of the week that we can even get together to record commentaries just for the Let's Plays. So, it's like, let alone discussions. So, I know a lot of you people have been wanting more like Steven Universe discussions. We just literally have not had the time to get together to do it.
Especially with Brandon doing God knows what. Then BJ, not only has he I can only imagine at this point, he just recently finished his job at being a photographer at various elementary schools, but I guess he's also been trying to find another summer job, to fill up the time before he goes back to said previous job. But, just exactly what Dani said. Yeah, it has been a little bit difficult for the 4 of us to get together, or at least the 3 of us.
Right.
But yeah.
But even outside of Steven Universe discussions, a long-ass time ago, we were just trying to think of ideas like what else could we do for discussions other than Steven Universe, because we want to provide a lot of variety for you guys. And an idea that BJ actually pitched was that each of the 4 of us, like we suggested anime, and all 4 of us, we sit together, we watch, and then we just do discussions, just like our overall thoughts, reactions, all that other kind of stuff. Like, I know BJ wanted us to watch Pokemon X and Y. I have no idea why, but that was his choice.
Well, I think out of the 4 of us, he's probably the biggest Pokemon fan,
I guess. And it's like, for the life of me, I can't remember what it was that Brandon suggested. It's like,
oh god, I do not remember. I know it was like BJ suggested Pokemon X and Y, the anime. Dani, you suggested Utena.
Yeah, Revolutionary Girl Utena, my all-time favorite anime. So I was like, I wanted to show that to you guys. And then Ryan here suggested JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So,
what a surprise.
So how did I get started watching this anyway? So Ryan has been saying for months and months and months, I gotta show you JoJo's. And it's like, that's how far back this goes. So literally a couple of days ago, I was bored. Like, I got home from work, I was bored, I had nothing else to do. So I decided to pop Hulu on my smart TV, and I'm just going through, I'm like, okay, is there anything new that I can watch? And I'm scrolling through all the anime, and lo and behold, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Granted, they only offer it subtitled. I do know there is a dub. I think Funimation is dubbing this, isn't it?
No.
I can't remember. Is it Viz or is it Funimation? I can't. I can't remember.
No, unfortunately, Funimations do not have the dubbing rights for JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Viz Media, as of right now, I only imagine they have the rights for this supposed Blu-ray DVD that will supposedly be released sometime in the future. For the dubbing rights, I think it's literally Warner Brothers themselves who are responsible for dubbing over JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Parts 1 and 2 for the standard DVD release that was released, I believe, September 2015.
Yeah, we'll have to fact check that later. But
yeah, it's like if memory serves, I think. What was it? Rumor has it. Yeah, this is only just a rumor. If this Blu-ray release for the current JoJo parts were to be released by Viz Media, Viz Media would go ahead and try to get different voice actors to basically redub parts 1 and 2.
Okay.
But again, those are just rumors.
Well, that's why I just figured, because really nowadays there's pretty much 2 dubbing companies, and it's like if it's not a Funimation job, it's a Viz Media job. That's pretty much what we've got now. So that's why I figured.
Right.
But regardless, it was like, I saw it on Hulu, and I'm like, why the fuck not? I'll look into this, and it was like, yep. I got hooked immediately, and that's why I said, Ryan, you have my permission to smack me for not watching this sooner. So it's like, this idea that BJ pitched months and months ago, and like we just kind of put it on the back burner. You know what? Fuck it, we're doing it. So sorry, BJ, we're hijacking your idea. That's what you get for being pokey.
Oh, jeez. Oh my god. Okay, but yeah, so now that you guys know the origin of this series of discussions, as it were, now I think it's time for us to go ahead and dive into what we're actually discussing about. And like we said earlier at the beginning of this video, it is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1, Phantom Blood.
Yeah, actually, can I just say, I was actually really surprised about something. Because usually when you have, animes that are divided into parts and everything, I'm so used to parts being divided by seasons. And, a typical anime season's like, 24 episodes? And part 1 is 9 episodes long. It's like, by the time I finished episode 9, I was like, wait, what the fuck? That's it? I was like,
that's pretty much it, yeah.
I was not expecting it to be so short.
Right, which explains why when it comes to when it comes to season 1, it includes both seasons 1 and not season 1. God damn it, season 1 consists of both parts 1 and 2 because like you established, part 1 does consist of 9 parts, but to make up for such a quote unquote short part, of course they had to add an season part 2, which is relatively a bit longer compared to part 1.
Okay, that's good. Because that was actually going to be my next question is can I expect part 2 to be just as short, or are they actually going to, flesh it out a little bit?
No, season 1, I believe it consists of at least more than 25 parts. Yeah, the first quarter, what you just saw, it was part 1, which is episodes 1 through 9, and then 10 and onwards, that is part 2.
Gotcha. Okay. Alrighty. So then I guess with that said, I guess maybe for the benefit of the people that are watching have never watched this anime, I guess maybe we can provide a very abridged synopsis as to what happens. Provided,
of course, if they took notice of the disclaimer that I put at the beginning of the video, where it says, "Okay, hey, listen, this contains spoilers for JoJo. So if you do not want to be spoiled on JoJo, or at the very least Phantom Blood, then click out of this video now and watch it for yourself." Okay. Believe me.
Alrighty, so I guess a basic plot synopsis. So it's basically once upon a time in Victorian England, that's the time period that this takes place in. It's yes. The whole anime, it actually opens up with opens up with our main character, Jonathan Joestar, as a baby. Like, there was a carriage accident or something. And
yes, there was a carriage accident with both Jonathan's father and mother.
Yeah, the mom died, and Papa Joestar and Jonathan lived. And what happened was this guy, this pretty much like, I guess like you can call like poor robber and everything. He basically stumbles upon the accident and is like, oh, corpse, and oh, this is from a noble family. Let's go steal some shit off of him and pawn it. And then it turns...
Yes. That was, for those who don't know, that's actually by the name of Dario Brando.
Dario, that's his name. That's like, yeah, it shows how important that guy is. But...
yeah.
Spoiler, get used to me saying that.
well, I mean, to be fair, not to jump ahead a little bit, but it's like not even like an episode or two into part one or whatever. Yeah, he does eventually pass away because of because Dario is in fact an alcoholic or whatever.
Yeah,
so
like,
it's like
alcoholic, lived in poverty and everything, and Papa Joestar basically he thought that he regains consciousness, sees Dario, and thinks, oh, you're here to save me. You're here to save me and my son. I owe you a tremendous debt. So fast forward years later, and like Ryan said, Dario dies, leaving behind his son, Dio Brando. And
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, pretty much the reason you're watching Phantom Blood.
Yes.
I mean, it's like I totally understand why there's so much hype around this guy, but I will geek out in due time. Summary first. So Dio dies. Not Dio dies. Dario dies.
Whoa, hold up. You're going way too far ahead.
No. Dario dies, and then Dio ends up at the Joestar family estate with this letter saying, like, okay, my dad died and everything, and he's basically, entrusting Papa Joestar to take care of his son. So Dio is pretty much accepted into the family, and Jonathan is like, oh, hey, cool, new friend, stepbrother, and everything, and pretty much right away, the two do not get along. Jonathan, he's just trying to be a nice guy. His dad's raising him to be the perfect gentleman, so he's doing everything he can to get Dio to like him. And Dio just wants nothing to do with Jonathan whatsoever. I mean, it's like the first thing he does is kick Jonathan's dog.
Yep, just from that alone, that kind of already gives you the vibe on what kind of a person Dio is.
Yeah, so, Dio pretty much, like, Dio's, it's pretty much, spelled out right from the very beginning. Because Dio had lived in poverty all of his life, and under, his alcoholic and abusive dad, his goal is, he's gonna get his way into this family, and he's gonna basically kick Jonathan out from being the heir. He wants to be the heir and take over, the estate and everything. So he's like, he's after riches. This is his ticket of getting out of this, poverty life and everything. And
basically Dio. It's like with this little deed that he got after his father died. It's like, oh, okay, now Dio will have the opportunity to basically, just steal the Joestar family fortune, just for the sole purpose of exactly what you said, Danny, just to get out of this like poor poverty and all that stuff.
And Dio is just willing to do anything and everything to accomplish this. I mean, it's like I said, like, he kicks Jonathan's dog. He publicly humiliates Jonathan at every chance he gets. Jonathan actually ends up falling in love with this girl, and
Erina.
Erina, yeah, he actually ends up falling in love with this girl. Dio finds out about this, and which leads to the meme-tastic, it is I, Dio scene.
Yes, Koro Dio da!
So, Yeah, and it's like Dio just like corners her, like grabs her and kisses her. Because it's
it's even more sinister because it's like when Dio kissed Erina. Yeah, that was literally Erina's first kiss.
Right, and I guess this was a big thing in Victorian England or something. I guess I don't know, this is JoJo. They do play everything up like crank up to 1,000-fold. So I mean, Dio kissing her was basically like the equivalent of a sexual assault, essentially. Basically, like, after that event and everything, she starts distancing herself from Jonathan, and that was pretty much the last straw. So, finally, Jonathan just beats the living shit out of Dio.
Yeah, it was like the little, I guess, quote-unquote, buddies that were hanging around Dio, like, even at the moment when Dio kissed Erina, yeah, it's like those little buddies of Dio's, yeah, they pretty much told Jonathan what happened, and yeah, that's what pretty much set Jonathan on edge. So yeah, exactly what Danny just said, that just pissed Jonathan off to no end. And it's like before then, it's like they were top students, and and they were really big when it comes to boxing matches. And every time that Jonathan and Dio would get into a boxing match, Dio would be the one to pretty much beat him every single time. But with this particular scenario, when Jonathan was so pissed off because Dio kissed Erina or whatnot, it's like, oh no, that gave him that in a way that pretty much gave him the strength to pretty much overpower Dio.
Yeah, like this was pretty much him just finally it's like all that pent up frustration and everything, and it was like that was, like I said, it's like that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and it was like, that's it, I've had enough. But the fight does end up getting broken up by Papa Joestar. And then we flash forward years later. I think it's like 7 years or something.
Yeah, it's like somewhere like the late 1880s.
Yeah, so
I'd like to say.
Yeah, so now at this point, Dio and Jonathan, I think, are in college. I think that's the impression I was getting, like high school. High school, college area. I don't remember. They didn't really specify, I don't think. But
yeah, exactly.
But basically they're young adults now, and suddenly Papa Joestar has fallen ill. And, it basically looks like, he's on his deathbed. So Dio is like, he's like, all right, he's finally getting what he wants. And Jonathan, even though, like, they've been acting like, buddy-buddy, like, in public, he's never still trusted Dio. And, pretty much Jonathan's just kind of been thinking, okay, something's up here. And pretty much he does his own investigation and pretty much finds out that, yeah, Dio's been poisoning Papa Joestar.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so then it's like, so he finds out, like, he actually ends up going to, like, I forgot what the place was called, but it's basically like this like back alley in London, which I think was actually where Dio used to live, actually.
Wait a minute. I could be wrong, but I think you may be referring to Ogre Street.
I think that's what it was called. But
yeah, because it was at the point where it's like, he did a lot of investigation at Ogre Street, which eventually led Jonathan to running into a rather important character, in my opinion, E.O. Speedwagon.
Yeah, Robert E.O. Speedwagon. That's where.
Yeah, Speedwagon.
And it's like, and I only say that because it's like, my God, I was like, I know the name Dio should have been a fucking tip-off and everything, but then we get R.E.O. Speedwagon. It's like, oh my God, we have characters that are named after classic rock bands.
Yeah, oh, trust me, you'll be running into that a lot with not just part 2, but also, like, you'll be running to that even more in part 3 once you get around to it.
Okay. But yeah, I was like, that was like, as soon as I saw, like, the guy introduces himself, I was like, yeah, Robert E.O. Speedwagon. I'm like, holy shit. This guy, it's like, oh my God, we actually have naming conventions in this anime.
Exactly, it's so fucking great.
So, with REO Speedwagon's help, he pretty much pinpoints that, yeah, Dio's been poisoning his Papa Joestar, and, like, even tracked down, like, where he even got the poison in the first place. So
yes.
So now Jonathan goes and finally confronts Dio about all of this, and pretty much like this episode, I think this was episode like 3 or 4, I don't remember, but it's like
somewhere around there, yeah.
Roughly halfway through. This part was probably my favorite in the entire all of part 1, like this halfway point, because holy shit, it was fucking amazing. So, Jonathan goes to confront Dio about all of this, and Dio basically he basically pulls out this trump card. So it had been hinted at throughout part 1, like up until this point, but it's been kind of in the background, but only now it's finally actually having some significance. So in the Joestar house, there's this stone mask that they just kind of had hanging on the wall. It doesn't really do anything. And Dio actually ends up finding out that when you put this mask on, and if blood is spilt on it, it turns the wearer into a vampire.
Oh, actually, the stone mask actually plays a much bigger part in part 2, because in part 2, they actually explain the origins behind the stone mask.
Okay, that's good.
But I mean, let's just say the stone mask were made for, different beings, quote unquote. But yeah, exactly how Dani described it. Yeah, if the stone mask is put on a human and with some kind of blood on said mask, then yes, the human will become a vampire.
Yeah. So Dio figures this out, and like, yeah, it's like, now that you said that they're gonna dive into the origins of the mask and everything, that's good, because pretty much at this point, it's a plot device. That's really what it is. It's a plot device to just move everything forward from here. So Dio, once he figures out the secrets behind this mask and everything, that's his trump card. He's like, you know what? I'm going to sacrifice my humanity and my mortality, and I'm going to turn myself into a vampire. And he's like, and I want JoJo's blood on the mask. So he goes to kill Jonathan, and instead Papa Joestar takes the hit. So we get this like really like sentimental and sad, tragic scene of Jonathan and his dad. Obviously, very distraught because he went through all this trouble to try to save his dad, and his dad ends up dying to save his life. But Papa Joestar's blood ends up on the mask. Dio puts the mask on, and then and that's what makes him become a vampire. So now he's all like, oh, this is so great and everything. You see this, JoJo? This is all because of your father's blood and everything. Like, starts taunting him and everything. The cops arrive. The cops try shooting him. Of course, that doesn't do shit, because, now it's a fucking vampire. You're not going to kill a vampire with bullets. To my understanding, at least of what's been, from what has at least been explained so far in part 1, the only way you can kill a vampire is with sunlight. So that convention still holds true, but everything else pretty much doesn't. So, I mean, it's like, bullets don't hurt him, ripping body parts off does nothing, but sunlight will kill a vampire.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have like this massive fucking battle that happens now. So it's like, the cops are trying to kill Dio, doesn't work. Completely falls flat on his face. Yeah,
even at one point, it's like apparently with this these new powers that Dio now possesses, it's like you probably didn't even notice this all that much, Dani, but it's like fucking whatever. Dio, I guess, threw, a corpse of one of the policemen that he sucked all the blood out of. Mm-hmm. He threw the corpse that hard at one of the policemen, it literally made the other police officer, break apart into a million pieces.
Yeah, I remembered that. I mean, that's my God, you want to talk about how crazy strong Dio is now. So
exactly,
I mean, Dio pretty much lays waste on the cops and everything. The mansion ends up getting set on fire. So now you have, Ario Speedwagon, he's flipping out because of all this is happening. And his main concern is, what's going to happen to Jonathan because, Dio's targeting him at this point. So the house is on fire. Jonathan's like, everyone's trying to get out. Jonathan is, trying to figure out what's going on and everything. And Dio, he's just taunting away and everything. Like, there was like a point, I think, where Jonathan, he was just trying to get to higher ground and everything. And Dio, he just like walks up like this like column and is just taunting him and everything. It's like, he doesn't even run to it's not like he's running to punch him and everything. He's deliberately walking and taunting him. It's like, and so it's like this thing just keeps building. The fire is raging. It gets to the point where, Jonathan's at least thinking that, if I can at least maybe get the fire, if I can let the flames engulf the house enough that it gets hot enough that maybe that will stop Dio. So there's a point where even like Ario Speedwagon, who's outside, actually picks up on this and everything. Like JoJo, he actually waits inside the house until it's like hot enough, and then he makes his way to the roof. Of course, that plan doesn't do anything because it's like, that's not going to do anything. But now you have now it's basically boils down to like this freaking like brawl on the rooftop between Dio and JoJo. And, again, doesn't stop Dio. I think like all that happens, I mean, it's like he's able to at least like collapse the house on him. But it stopped Dio, but it doesn't kill him. So now Jonathan's able to walk out, granted, he's injured because of course he is.
Yeah.
And, so after this massive bombastic fight and everything, so Jonathan's recovering and he happens to come across a man known as Baron Zeppeli.
Yes.
Clearly the Led Zeppelin reference. Which I am totally okay for, because I fucking love Led Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah.
So, Baron Zeppeli introduces what I guess is, like, this show's, like, Super Dragon Ball Z magic powers or something, I guess. But
in a matter of speaking, I guess. I mean, not to like Dragon Ball Z extremes and whatnot, but it is like a magic power, as it were.
The Shonen Jump powers.
Yeah, in a matter of speaking, yes. It's like Baron Zeppeli. Apparently, he tells Jonathan that in order to defeat Dio, considering that he is a vampire, he needs to defeat, much like any other vampire, he needs to defeat Dio through the power of sunlight. Fortunately, there is a technique that can be learned in order to do so, and that is, of course, known as the Ripple, or more commonly known as a Hamon.
Yeah,
that's what
they're calling it. That's what they're calling it in the sub. Like, they're not actually translating it out to the Ripple. They're just calling it Hamon.
In the sub, it is known as Hamon, but in the English dub or whatnot, if you were to actually buy the DVD English dub or whatever, they pronounce it as the Ripple.
So they translated it out in the dub. Okay.
Yeah. But in this case, we'll just refer to it as Hamon.
Yeah.
But Hamon or the Ripple, it's literally like a breathing technique that if you get your breathing within a certain rhythm or whatnot or something like that, then you could actually create sunlight energy.
Yeah, which I actually thought was pretty interesting because it was like, it's an interesting idea, like, especially because, a point that they drive in is that, it is entirely on breathing. So if something happens, like if you get too injured, or if you're drowning, or if something else happens that's, limiting your breathing, you're fucked. So, I mean...
Pretty much, yeah.
So this is not one of those powers or something where it's like, it's limitless or anything. It's like, no, there's actually a really clever way of getting around it. But so like at this point, Baron Zeppeli is starting to train JoJo on the Hamon.
Unleash the power of the sun.
And even though I do praise how clever it is for coming up with how to counter it and everything, it does kind of seem to me that it was like I guess maybe like at this point, because you have to remember JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, at least the manga, has been around for a very long time. I think it came out in the 80s or something. It's over 30.
Exactly.
It's over 30 years old, so I'm sure that at this point it wasn't nearly as thought out, nearly as focused as what they do in later installments. But it just, I don't know, to me it seems like with JoJo with the Hamon, it just seems like when you're seeing his next fights, I mean, he's just throwing out all these other random attacks and everything, and these are all Hamon attacks, but it's like, it's kind of becomes a little hard to keep track of them. It kind of seems like, with Hamon, it's just like, yeah, you can use it for whatever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the impression that I was getting. Like, I don't know, maybe that's something that they rectify in part 2 or in later parts, but at least in part 1, that was the impression that I was getting, was like, okay, JoJo's the special, he's learned the special move, so now he's just, going, all butt fuck with it, and he's just whipping shit out of his ass and is winning his fights. Because I shit you not, like, pretty much the next episodes is where, because Dio... Dio survived the house fire and everything, but, he's still burned, he's still weak and everything, so, of course, he's got to heal. And how does he do this? By drinking blood. Although, apparently, Dio doesn't actually have to bite people with his vampire things. He can literally just stick his fingers on people and suck his blood through their fingers. It's like, wait, what?
Well, okay, yeah, that's one of the ways that he can drink blood from his victims. Jumping a little bit ahead, like, I believe if you were to watch part 3, let's just say Dio has some quote-unquote sexy time with some women victims, and with the women, I believe that is when he does the whole biting them in the neck and drinking their blood way.
Yeah, he actually does, like a vampire. Because, like, because that's like, I even posted this on Twitter and everything. It's like, yeah, Ryan, feel free to, throw up my Twitters and everything in the video. But that's where it's like, I even, commented, it's like, okay, Dio's a vampire, he's got the fangs and all, but he never uses his fangs. He literally just uses his fingers to drink people's blood. It's like, why the fangs then, if you're not going to use them? That's one of the defining traits of being a fucking vampire, and it's not utilized. It's like, what? From what we were seeing, because we do see some on-screen moments where, because Dio, he's not only drinking blood, to recover himself, he's also turning the victims basically into his vampire thralls. So we do see moments where, it's like, yeah, he just grabs people by the face and everything, and it's like the next thing you know, you see they're literally, their skin is, shriveling up and everything, and then it's like, he lets go of them, and, now they're vampire thralls. So, basically, Dio is spending these, while Jonathan is training and fighting, Dio's henchmen, Dio's just taking this time to basically amass an army.
Pretty much,
They pretty much...
basically just take over all of England.
He goes into this town that had, a population of over 400, and in one night, he wipes the town. So, it's it was, so Dio's been pretty busy and everything. And like I said, during this time, you see some random henchmen, people that are, being revived from the dead even, just as zombies. We see Jack the Ripper becomes a vampire thrall. There's these two guys that had, a history or something with, Mary Stewart.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. They're known as Bruford and Tarkus. I believe they were, knights or assassins, I believe, that actually were two warriors that served Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, that was
but one thing led to another. other, and they were led to their execution for bullshit reasons.
Right, like, yeah, so, I'd actually have to see if that's actually, like, legit history, or if that's just shit that the anime is pulling out of their ass, but regardless. Regardless, you know, so Dio's just throwing, you know, henchmen and everything after JoJo, and, you know, it's just episodes of JoJo just fighting henchmen and training his Hamon and everything, and it's like, I don't know, to me, this I felt was where, like, the anime really slows down. Like, the first half of part 1 is fucking great, because, like, you know, they build up the relationship between Dio and Jonathan to the point that when we do get to that climax where Dio becomes the vampire, and just, like, you know, that's where I was, like, talking about this massive fight that happens, everything, it was freaking great. And then it practically, to me, it slows to a goddamn crawl for, like, a bunch of episodes, because it's like, okay, it's another henchman, and, you know, it kind of becomes, like, I guess, like, you know, henchman of the week, like, that's kind of how it felt to me, which, you know, okay, this is early JoJo, hell, JoJo is one of the reasons why Shonen Jump is the way it is. So I mean, it's like, you know, so a lot of these trends and everything that you see in, you know, a lot of the stuff now, like One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and like My Hero Academia and stuff, like a lot of these traits and everything, a lot of these themes, yeah, they pretty much trace their roots back to like JoJo, Dragon Ball, Fist of the North Star, like that much I do know.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it's like, you know, so, you know, I gotta kind of keep that in mind, because it's like, okay, you know, it's not the best and everything, but I gotta remember, this is early, you know, JoJo was one of the animes that kind of, not animes, one of the mangas that kind of started, like, contemporary Shonen Jump, so it's like, you know, okay, I kind of gotta keep that in mind, but regardless, it's like, to me, it really slows down, at least until you get to the last 2 episodes, because that's when Jonathan and Dio have their rematch.
Yeah, it's like after they took out that last night. I don't remember if it was Bruford or whatnot, but it's like, yeah, it was like they were taking out like that bigger night or whatever in like that chamber. But unfortunately, yeah, Zeppeli ends up getting killed in the process. But before Zeppeli dies, yeah, he transfers all of his hormone energy into Jonathan, so that way he will have enough. Hopefully, he'll sustain enough hormone energy to take on Dio during the rematch.
Yeah.
Well, that ended up take out that second night as well.
Well, yeah, but you know, primarily it's, you know, to finish Dio off once and for all. So we get to, you know, the rematch. You know, which, it's a good fight, not nearly as exciting as, you know, the one in the house, but, you know, it's still all right. And it's like, you know, because, like, Dio, he starts mastering, like, you know, ice techniques. Like, he's literally, like, evaporating, not necessarily evaporating, he's freezing the moisture in your body. So, I mean, that's, like, he just has to, touch you, and it's, like, your entire arm will freeze. And when your body freezes, what happens to your breathing? So it's like, so again, this is where Dio's found a way to get around the hormone attacks. He's like, oh, if I just freeze you enough and everything, that'll slow your breathing down. So, I mean, it's like, you know, that's how smart fucking Dio is. But But eventually, of course, Jonathan does come out on top. Like, you know, it's like, I think, like, at that point, like, all that's left is, like, Dio's head. I mean, it's like
pretty much, yeah. It's like Dio and Jonathan face off after Dio. I cannot remember what this other person's name was, but he was another warrior who I guess was pretty much allies with Jonathan. He gets killed by Dio because of Dio's freezing techniques or whatever. Kijaku. Yeah. And then eventually with Jonathan's hormone techniques or hormone energy, yeah, he was able to affect Dio with the sunlight energy, and surprisingly, yeah, instead of his body like completely evaporating, yeah, the only thing that that remains of Dio was his head.
Yeah, so that's where it's like, okay, so we went from just trapping him into a burning house to practically, just decapitating him, basically. So, so pretty much, so after the battle is won, and, everyone goes home and everything, JoJo, he actually ends up marrying, Erina. So, so the two of them get married, and it's like, oh, it's going to be happily ever after. They're going to have their honeymoon in America, so now they're on a nice cruise ship and everything. And it turns out that Dio is still not dead. So
what are the odds?
It's like again, we're operating by fucking vampire logic. He's not exposed to sunlight, so even though Dio is literally a head in a jar, I mean, we're talking like Futurama shit here. And he's literally a head in a jar, and he's still alive and kicking. I mean, it's like, I think at this point, Dio, he can just shoot lasers out of his eyes. And yes, vampires can shoot lasers out of their eyes.
Oh, look, this is anime we're talking about. You'll see them.
It's like, no, this is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure we're talking. This isn't just anime. This is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I mean, it's like, it's gotta be fucking bizarre.
Oh, wow, vampires shoot lasers out of their eyes? Whoa, that's really bizarre. What are the odds?
It's like, JoJo. So,
JoJo.
So Dio, so now he's just ahead. And, Dio's plan now is like, look, I may be alive, but I'm just ahead. I need a body. So he wants to possess Jonathan's body. So basically, so now he's pretty much attacked the people on the ship. So now we have an entire ship full of zombies, like with the exceptions of Jonathan and Erina, and actually a baby. Jonathan,
there is an infant involved in a way.
Like you see like this woman, with a baby. This woman gets killed, and the baby is still alive. So, Jonathan, it's like, oh, hey, look, it's throwback to, Jonathan's origins, essentially. So, Jonathan and Dio, they have their next fight and everything, except now Jonathan's not exactly coming out on the top here. So, Jonathan, he's actually dying, during this fight and everything. Erina...
Yes, exactly.
Erina finds him, and, she's willing to die with Jonathan. Jonathan's manipulated the fight in a way that he's going to just blow the ship up and just sink Dio at the bottom of the ocean. It's like, it may not kill him, but he's just a head in a jar. What's he going to do at the bottom of the ocean? He won't be...
exactly.
He's not going to be a threat anymore. So...
It's like exactly what you said earlier. It's like, Erina did say that, oh, I'm going to stay here and die with you because I cannot live without you. But Jonathan is like, no, you can't die, and here's why. You remember that infant that you have? That infant needs saving too. So if you die, that infant dies as well. So you need to get out of here, and I will go ahead and hold down Dio until you get off the ship and explodes.
So Erina manages to escape with this little infant, because Jonathan made it a point, whereas that this whole thing with the baby and everything, that he's like, this is what happened to me. And he's like, I will not let the same thing happen. I will not let a little baby die when there's a chance that this kid could be saved, because that was what happened with me. So that's, like Ryan said, he entrusted Erina with, saving herself and this baby. And they managed to get off the ship, no problem. And the ship starts exploding, and Dio, he's screaming shit and everything, and he's saying oh, don't you want immortality? You could live forever. You can live with Erina. You can have your happy ending like how you wanted it and everything. Jonathan literally just grabs Dio's head, holds Dio's head in his chest, and it's supposed to basically be even through all of this shit that happened, because Jonathan is a gentleman and is such a nice guy that, he can't really, bring himself to, punch him in the face or anything. He's just gonna hold Dio's head and is just like, you know what? if we're gonna die together, we're gonna die together, and I'm gonna be by your side, because I mean, hey, you pretty much were my, like, adopted brother, essentially. We went through all this shit together. We may be different, but we're still the same. So, like, they were going down that route and everything. So yeah. So the ship explodes. Jonathan Joestar dies. Dio is, somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, because it's like, I know for a fact that he's not dead.
Yeah. If you've already got a glimpse of part 3, like even from the arcade game and such, yeah, you may already know that, yeah, unfortunately, it may look so at the end of part 1, but no, Dio is in fact still alive.
And I know this for a fact because even long before this anime came out, I did know of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The only thing that I knew of JoJo, though, was that, okay, there's this character named Dio. He has this attack called Zawarudo, which basically involves him, like, stopping time, punching the shit out of you, and then dropping a steamroller on your head. That was, like, fucking meme-tastic on the internet years and years and years ago. So it was like, yes. I knew of that. And that's literally all I knew of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure before going into this anime, was just this Zawarudo. So having finished part 1 and seeing Dio, but not seeing Zawarudo, so it's like, okay, I know Dio is coming back. I mean, yeah, he's a vampire, so of course he's immortal and everything, but I just figured, okay, it's probably going to end up being like, what Naruto did with the immortal guy, Hidan, I believe his name was,
okay.
Where it's like, yeah, another immortal guy, at this point, rendered ahead. Wonder where Kishimoto got that idea from. But yeah, immortal guy rendered ahead, and they're like, okay, what do we do with this guy and everything? It's like, bury him. And that's what they do. They just bury him, and that's the last we ever see or hear of this guy ever again. So it's
oh my God.
So I'm thinking, okay, I already saw this with Naruto, so that's probably what happened. He's just gonna sit in his little jar at the bottom of the ocean, probably have some fish, like, nibble on his nose or something. And it's like, that'll probably be the last we ever hear of Dio. But I saw no Zawarudo, so somehow he's gotta come back.
No, he will.
Okay.
It'll be a little while, but no, he'll be back.
Okay.
But in the meantime, though, it's like, yeah, the ship explodes, which takes Jonathan and Dio. They take them both. Erina escapes the ship with the infant that she saved from the woman who died. And also keep in mind, at the time of that attack, Erina is also pregnant.
Yeah, that's like
just want to throw that out there too.
That was like literally like the last line in part 1. Like, they said that Erina and the infant, they managed to they were recovered, I think 2 days later. So they were drifting out in the ocean for 2 days before they were eventually found, and then Erina basically continues the trip, like, because remember, they were on their honeymoon to America. So she ends up going all the way to New York. And, like, literally, like, the last line or something that they said that there was a new life that had awakened within her. So it's like, there we go. So, yep. At some point, because they didn't really say, like, how, like, what was the time frame between their wedding and their trip to the honeymoon. They didn't really, I don't think they specified how much it was, but it's like, regardless. So yeah, Erina was pregnant with Jonathan's kid, and, so now she's got 2 kids to take care of, essentially, and she settles in New York, which is where part 2 begins. And that's actually, I'm literally like 1.5 episodes into part 2, so yeah, but that's essentially what happens in Phantom Blood.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Funny enough, it's like, you just finished watching part 1, and it's like, it has been quite some time since I last watched all of part 1, like, from the English stuff on the DVD, and I was like, you probably explained the synopsis of part 1 a hell of a lot better than I would ever would.
And mind you, I was trying to keep it more abridged, because there's still a lot of details and characters and shit that, we didn't really get into, but I mean, it's like, if we went into every fucking detail, I mean, that's like, we'd never actually get into, like, the discussing and the geeking out of, like, you know, all these other parts and stuff. So, you know, if you want to see, you know, in its full extent, you know, it is on Hulu. Go watch it. It's free.
Yeah, it's free, or if you want to support the official release, by all means, go buy the English dub DVD from Warner Brothers themselves.
Yeah, that too.
Or there's, like, Crunchyroll and, you know, all those other anime hosting sites.
Yeah. So... pardon me. So I guess at this point, I guess, like, let's maybe just talk characters, I guess, because I mean I think that's a pretty good place to start.
Sure, I don't see why not.
Yeah. So like I said, pretty much Phantom Blood, the only reason you are gonna watch this anime is because of Dio, because Dio is by far the best thing about this goddamn part.
Yeah, yes, Dio is in fact a complete utter douchebag.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it is amazing to think that, like, you know, with part 1 being as short as it is, that, you know, within like 3, maybe 4 episodes, I mean, they crafted Dio very well, I think, for him being like the main villain and everything. I mean, it's like we got a good glimpse of where he came from. We saw, like, you know, the relationship between him and Jonathan and how that evolved and what drove him to going full fucking vampire and everything. I was like, I thought they did a really good job with, you know, crafting Dio as the villain, and to think that they did it in such a short amount of time. I mean, it's kind of sad to think how, like, in a lot of shonen animes nowadays, you know, because they like to take their time and everything, which I totally understand, you know, take your time to flesh out characters and everything, but it's like, then you look and see how JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, they managed to craft their villain in 3 episodes. It's like, and, you know, then you have, like, characters in Naruto where, you know, they have, like, you know, mountains of fucking screen time, and it's like, it takes too goddamn long to develop their characters, or hell, they don't even develop their characters at all. So it's like, you know, I watch shows like that, and it's like, all right, guys, what's your excuse for not developing your characters when JoJo developed their villain in 3 episodes?
Yeah, that's just it. I strongly agree. It is amazing how it's like, yeah, with just like the first 3 episodes, we already get an idea on what kind of person Dio was going to be like, and how within a short amount of time he develops and becomes that, like, such a great villain, especially like after the moment where he fulfills all those requirements with that stone mask and turns himself into a vampire.
Mm-hmm. That's like, one of the things I think, like, there was a scene, like, this is kind of me, like, so during, like, the part where I was saying how the anime just kind of slows down because, you know, this is now Jonathan training and fighting off henchmen and everything. So there are parts, like, you know, in between, of course, they got to flash to Dio to show just what's happening. So that's where we're seeing how he's building this army and he's trying to heal himself by drinking blood and everything. And there's this scene that, like, he traps, like, this woman in her house, and, you know, she's got a baby, and she's pleading for her kid's life and everything. She's like, do whatever you want to me, but, please don't hurt my child. And, Dio, very charismatic and everything. He's all like, oh, you've moved me and everything. And he's like, you know what? I will take you up on your offer. I will spare your child. So he goes and, drinks her blood and everything, makes her into a vampire thrall. And vampire thrall mommy literally starts eating the baby's face. I forgot about that. And the camera just turns to Dio, and was like, I fulfilled my bargain. And I'm like, and I'm just like, can we keep following this guy? Can we just stop following Jonathan? I want to see more of Dio.
Oh my god.
It's like, we get a scene like this, and then it's like, oh, we're going back to Jonathan fighting a henchman, or going back to the Hamon training. It's like, no, go back.
Yeah, it's like getting into a little bit more detail with the henchman. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, I know there was like some really big characters like Jack the Ripper, and those two other warriors that were brought back from the dead because of Dio. Yeah, I can only imagine they were considered like relatively huge characters in a matter of speaking. But it's like, unfortunately, yeah, it's like Jack the Ripper, Bruford, and Tarkus. It's like, yeah, I can completely understand why you, Dani, you would say that these henchmen would be considered boring, because, like, compared to a lot of other villains that we would eventually run into, like, as we get farther along in the JoJo universe, these quote henchmen, they seem like the most unmemorable villains, to be honest.
They really are. I mean, that's like, you know, the only thing I remember about Jack the Ripper is that, apparently his ability is, you know, like chucking knives and everything. But there's a scene, like, where we see, like, you know, knives just come out of his body, and he throws them by flexing his muscles. That is the only thing that I remember about Jack the Ripper, was because that was so fucking ludicrous that I was like, that's worth remembering. But it's like, yeah, those other two, like, what is it, like, Bruford Tarkus or something? I didn't even remember their names. How sad is that? I watched their episodes yesterday. I don't even remember their names. That's how so disinterested I was in these two. It's like,
yeah.
I understand that, you know, in Shonen Jump anime, you know, of course the henchmen are not going to be nearly as interesting as, you know, the main villain and everything. But even then, it's like, you know, okay, I know I bagged on Naruto earlier, so now let me give some praise to Naruto. So during the Sasuke retrieval arc, which was like the last major arc before we go into, the fucking train wreck that was Shippuden. So during the Sasuke retrieval arc, there's like 5 henchmen that Naruto and company basically have to battle and everything before we get to Naruto versus Sasuke. And even though those henchmen, you don't really know their histories, their actual personalities are pretty standard and everything, I will praise those henchmen as being memorable because their fights were really good. And it's like, you know, like, take like Jirobo or something. Jirobo was fighting Choji. Jirobo, there's nothing to the character. Like, I don't even, like, his personality is just, you know, very bland. There's really nothing to him. You don't even get a sense of his history. But the fight between him and Choji was so freaking great. It's like, you know, that was a great fight. Kidomaru versus Neji. Great fight, especially because this was a guy that actually managed to find out the weakness behind Neji's abilities, which up until this point you thought he was practically invincible, and nope, this guy managed to figure out that it wasn't. So it was like, you want to talk about a fight that's on the edge of your seat. Then you've got like the twins going up against Kiba. You've got Shikamaru versus Tayuya. You know, again, really cool fights. But probably like the one fight, if anything, out of all the henchmen that everybody remembers is Kimimaro versus Rock Lee and Gaara. As like, Kimimaro, let's just be honest here, guys. I mean, it's like, I know Kimimaro was really popular, but let's just not kid ourselves, guys. Kimimaro, as a character, fucking dull as a rock. It's like, you know, you got barely a glimpse of his past. The guy had no personality to him whatsoever. But the reason why everyone loved that guy so much was because he had a kick-ass ability, and his fight against Rock Lee and then Gaara was probably like the one fight that could actually rival Naruto and Sasuke's fight. So it's like, I'm not against henchmen. Like, you know, I like it when you see, like, you know, these henchmen that are having like these really awesome fights and everything, especially when they're fighting other characters, because, you know, we get awesome fights, we get to see other characters in action and everything. I love it. You don't get that here in part 1. Every henchman is pretty much being fought by JoJo alone. I mean, it's like, fucking Ario Speedwagon does nothing in part 1. He's literally, if I may go back to fucking Naruto, he's like fucking Sakura. Plays cheerleader, stands in the background, screams exposition about what is happening, has one moment where he actually does help Baron Zeppeli in a fight, So you're thinking like, okay, because he even goes so far as saying like, I'm not going to be useless. I'm not going to just stand aside and watch you guys fight and do nothing. I'm going to stand here and help. So it's like, okay, he has this grand moment, and immediately afterwards, from then on until the rest of part 1, he goes back to being fucking cheerleader. He goes back to being useless. It's like, I was like practically screaming. I was like, Speedwagon, why are you here? You're not doing anything. It's like, it's like all he's doing is playing cheerleader to JoJo, and it's like, we don't fucking need that right now, okay?
Right. I mean, it's like, I was like, fighting wise, I mean, it's like, yes, we got a glimpse on how he fights or whatever. Like when we first run into Robert E.O. Speedwagon when Jonathan first reaches Ogre Street. I mean, it's like, okay, listen, I don't care what anyone says. It's like, if a guy like Robert E.O. Speedwagon, who has a fucking bladed hat like Kung Lao from Mortal Kombat, I'm sorry, that is fucking badass.
Yeah, it's like, right?
But it's like we see like we only see that like when we first run into it. But yeah, exactly how you described it, Danny.
Yeah, serrated hat, we never see it again.
We never see it again. I mean, it's like, okay, yeah, fighting wise, yeah, he's not that big of a fighter, but it's like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that, Danny. It's like, yeah, granted, I will agree, he's mostly cheerleader in part 1, but importance-wise, overall, he is rather important in a way, for reasons that you will eventually see once you get into part 2, because you will see Speedwagon in part 2 again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I saw Speedwagon remember, I'm like 1.5 episodes into part 2, so I've seen Speedwagon. But it's just, as far as part 1 is concerned, I mean, it's not even like he's like, it's not even like, when he's playing cheerleader, he's rooting JoJo on, and, JoJo is like, oh, I hear you, Speedwagon, and everything, thank you, and everything. It's not even that. I mean, it's like, it's like he's just screaming for the sake of, like, providing exposition as to what is happening in the fight, and is, like, freaking panicking like no other, and it's like, it was just really annoying to see that it's like, you have this character who had a lot of potential. I understand that, you can't make him like you can't make him like as powerful as Jonathan. I get that. But I mean, it's like, you're telling me that it's like, you're not even gonna like, maybe train him in like a Hamon or anything, or maybe like find another way to build up his fighting skills or something. It's like, I understand, like, yeah, if he can't take out like, the big guys and everything. But I mean, even when you're going up against like vampire thralls, like just, freaking NPCs essentially, he doesn't even do that. He does nothing. It's like, yes, yeah, freaking serrated hat, never see it again. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know. It's like, you would think at the very least with that bladed hat of his, he would try to, I don't know, like try to use his hat to sawed off Tarkus's leg when they're in that death chamber or whatnot.
It's like something. And it's like, that's why I'm just like, it's like I said, it was like in part 1, I'm just like, Speedwagon, why are you here? You're not doing anything. It's like, if you're not going to do anything, get the fuck out.
Even Speedwagon is scared.
It's like, I mean, like, at this point, you're just a fucking corpse waiting to happen. So that's where I was just like, yeah, it's like, I know you said, and I think even Gigs, like, even replied, like, on Twitter saying, don't go bad-mouthing the Speedwagon, because you guys are talking about part 2, and it's like, I mean, I'll take your word for it, but as far as part 1 is concerned, it's like, Speedwagon is probably, like, my, I guess, maybe least favorite character, just because it's like, I just feel like he's just not nearly developed enough. We barely get a backstory for him. And as far as his character goes, it's like, he's fucking Alpha 5, okay? That's what he is. It's like, that's all he does is just scream, he's like, he just screams, screams exposition, screams for JoJo. I mean, it's like, it's like Alpha 5 screaming to Zordon and the fucking Rangers. That's what it felt like. It got annoying really fast.
Right.
Yeah, so, not a big fan of the Speedwagon right now. Like, maybe that'll change in part 2, but as far as part 1 goes, I can live without the Speedwagon, which is a shame because he's named after REO Speedwagon, which is a fucking awesome band.
Yeah. Alright, but it's like I think that pretty much covers, like, I mean, I don't know if there was anything else you want to talk about, like, in regards to the characters or whatnot.
I think, if anything, maybe Jonathan, because this is what I...
Oh, yeah, god damn it. Okay,
yeah,
all right, go ahead, go on.
Because this is what I kept hearing, like, even before I started watching this anime, I kept hearing that out of all the Joestar protagonists, Jonathan seems to be the one that people like the least. And I can kind of understand why. It's not that he's a bad character or anything. I mean, it's like, I think he's fine as a character. I just think that it's like, okay, he's a gentleman and he's a nice guy and he's insanely strong. And that's it. That's all there is to him. And it's like, I don't think it's so much as that he's a bad character, so much as he's was just not that interesting. Especially, when you compare him to freaking Dio. I mean, they did such a great job with Dio. Dio just overshadowed everybody when it comes to character. So it's like,
Yeah. It's like, I think it's like when it comes to, like, other JoJo protagonists or whatnot, it's like, yeah, I kind of get the feeling that it's like, yeah, exactly what you said, Danny. It's like, while Jonathan is not a bad JoJo protagonist by any means, yeah, I feel like it's like he's a bit bland compared to other JoJo protagonists. Right. Like, he needs to be a little bit more fleshed out in a way, but at the same time, though, I can't really blame that, considering that, okay, yeah, considering how he was raised by his father, he's trying to be a gentleman and a respectable warrior and such. It's like, I can't necessarily blame that in a matter of speaking.
And see, that's actually something I was actually thinking, like, maybe this is where they were going with it. Because all this time, Jonathan has been raised to being, like, this gentleman and everything. And then, like, as we do see, like, Dio pushes him to his limits, to the point that, like, he becomes so overcome with rage and everything that, I mean, it's like, had Papa Joestar not interfered when they were younger, when Jonathan was just beating the shit out of Dio, he probably could have beaten Dio to death. He was that full of rage. And it's like, we do see this again with the whole house fire fight and everything, and it's like, so I was thinking, like, okay, this is probably where they're going with it, is, his just disgust and hatred of Dio clashing with his father's upbringing. And we do see, Jonathan he very deeply loved his father and everything, deeply respected him. So, I mean, he does take his teachings to heart. So now it's like, okay, you've got, Papa Joestar's teachings, and then his rage versus Dio and everything. And it's like, how are these two are gonna clash? How's he gonna find the balance between, how can he still be that proper gentleman and being the noble fighter and not have to succumb to the rage that pretty much was bringing Dio to near death every freaking time. So it was like, so I was thinking, okay, that's probably where Jonathan's character development is going to come in. It's going to be him trying to find the balance between the two. And nope, that's not what happens. I mean, it's like, JoJo gets pissed off, but then it's like, nope, we just go right back to him being the nice guy. And then it's like, okay, now he's just this, kick-ass fighter. And I was like, oh, really? Again, I think this boils down to the fact that, this is part 1 we're talking about. This is a story that is over 30 years old. So, of course, like, your first protagonist is probably not going to be nearly as, like, nuanced as later protagonists, because now the guy's got years of experience of writing behind him. So I'm thinking, maybe that's what the situation is. Like, Jonathan was the first, but maybe that makes him the worst or something. Like, again, I want to stress, like, he's not a bad character. He's likable. I do like him and everything. He's a nice guy and everything. But I think it's because at the end of the day, there's nothing else really that sets him apart from any other nice guy, gentleman character in an anime, other than he punches hard.
Right. It's like thinking about it now. It's like I know I mentioned that Jonathan Joestar as a JoJo protagonist is like bland, but it's like I kind of want to like change my perspective on Jonathan for a little bit. I mean, it's like I will. It's like okay, in a way, he is like a bit bland compared to other Jonathan protagonists, but like not compared to JoJo protagonists. But at the same time though, it's like thinking about it now, like I'm thinking about like the other JoJo protagonists that we'll run into like in parts 2, 3, and 4. It's like compared to the others, it's like okay, I think in a way, considering how Jonathan's character is like, as bland as his character may be, I think in a way that's what makes him stand out like as his own character. It's what makes him unique compared to other JoJo protagonists in later parts.
Oh, maybe.
Which is nothing bad by any means, really.
Yeah, it's like I may have to come back to Jonathan once I start watching some more seasons. It's just as of right now, it was like, Dio, fucking amazing. Jonathan, That's just more or less how I feel.
Right. Well, it's like now it's like, seeing as how you just started with part 2, now you have to try to get a feel for the kind of personality and character that the second JoJo protagonist has, Joseph Joestar.
And I can already say I love him already. I mean, that's like, my God, in one episode, you've completely overshadowed Jonathan in one fucking episode.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. We'll save the geeking for Joseph when we do eventually get to talking about part 2. Let's just stick with part 1.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. So I guess that having been said, though, was like we pretty much gone over like the plot synopsis of part 1. We've gone over, I guess, like all the characters that we want to talk about. So it's like, Danny, considering that this is the first time you've experienced Phantom Blood of JoJo, what did you think about part 1 overall?
Overall, I do think this is a pretty decent start. Like I said, I did say earlier, the first half, fucking loved it. I loved the build-up to all the way up to where Dio becomes a vampire. Those episodes are great. And then it kind of slowed down until you get to the rematch and that finale on the ship. So it's like, great beginning, middle, pretty decent ending. But, as far, overall, I'm digging it. I'm definitely enjoying it and everything. I want to continue on into part 2. So, I mean, it's like, even though I have my hang-ups and everything, it hasn't deterred me from wanting to look into it more. So it's like, so yeah, I'm liking JoJo so far.
Okay, well, that's good.
And actually, actually also, can I just say that it's like, I know everyone, you're all saying this because of the memes and everything, but I mean, it's like, my God, Mr. JoJo man, the creator, whoever you are, you have fucking awesome taste in music, because, no, I'm serious, I actually looked this up. So, apparently the creator of JoJo, he said in an interview that when he was writing and penning Phantom Blood, he would listen to music, and a lot of the music that he was listening to was from the band Yes, in particular Roundabout. So to use that as the ending credits song, that's fucking great. I mean, it's like...
yes, absolutely.
See, again, another great band. See, REO Speedwagon, Dio, Yes, all this classic rock and everything, Led Zeppelin, this is the music that I grew up on. My parents raised me on this classic rock and everything. So, I mean... I posted this on Twitter where I was like, I watched the first episode and I'm like, just tweeting out my thoughts as I'm watching the episode. And then it's like, all of a sudden, I hear that familiar little guitar riff and I'm like, wait, why does this sound so familiar? And then the credits starts going and all of a sudden Roundabout starts playing and I'm like, holy fuck, they're using Yes! And it's like, I mean, never mind the fact that you never really hear Western music being used in anime. Like, honestly, off the top of my head, prior to this, there's only one other anime that I've seen that actually used a Western song for their ending credits, and that was Paradise Kiss, because they used Franz Ferdinand for their ending music. And, you know, really freaking good. But, you know, that was really like the only other time, because, you know, every other time it's always some J-pop or J-rock song or anything. I mean, you know, the typical anime fanfare. So to hear, you know, a Western song, let alone a classic song, you know, that I was like fangirling so goddamn hard. It's like and it's like, you know, and I do know in part 2, yeah, they're still, you know, they may have changed the animation, but they're still using roundabout. So I do have to ask, do they keep this convention in the other parts? Like, do they continue using the Western music, or is this just a one-time thing?
You know what? No, I believe they do it. Okay, well, okay, aside from the openings for part 3 and the openings for part 4, no, they still use Western music for the endings for parts 3 and 4.
Nice. It's like, don't tell me what they are. You know, I won't.
I won't.
It's like, I want to be surprised.
No. It's like, no. It's like, regardless, it's like, yeah, I think when you listen to the Western songs that are used for the endings of parts 3 and 4, I think you'll find it'll be really fitting.
Okay, yeah. It's like, because, I knew of the meme, because, you know, of course, everybody was making the reference, like, you know, to be continued, and they start playing Roundabout. I was like, you know, I had heard of the meme. I didn't realize that was actually specifically a JoJo meme. I didn't realize that. I just thought, you know, okay, just someone probably just started this as a joke or something. And I was like, no, it was I did not realize that was a JoJo meme. Like, at first I was geeking out because, you know, oh my god, yes. And then it clicked, oh my god, I just got the meme.
Yep, if you guys seen the little gag that I did at the Buster Groove finale, now you'll know exactly where I got that from.
Oh my god, yes.
Okay, all right. Now I would go ahead and try to express my thoughts on part 1 a little bit, but I think before we do that, there is one thing that I think we kind of both missed. So, what did you think of the opening for JoJo Part 1?
I thought it was awesome. I was like, you know, I loved the whole idea. Like, you know, a lot of it was told, like, I guess, like, through, like, the original manga panels. Because it's like, all throughout that opening, like, you can clearly see that, you know, these were the original manga panels. Granted, they were now animated, but, I mean, it was literally like you're actually seeing the panels themselves, like, flying around and everything, as they're just kind of showing off, this is what's essentially going to happen this season. You know, this isn't like, you know, oh, here's just an opening of just characters doing random things to a badass song. It's like, no, they pretty much tell you this is all of part 1, you know, which makes sense, because, I mean, it is the thing that fucking set off this series. So, I mean, they hit the highlights. Like, you know, they hit when, you know, Dio ended up at the estate. They hit the moment where, you know, Dio kissed Erina and then Johnny beats the shit out of him. You know, they highlight where Dio becomes the vampire, the house fire fight, you know. So they hit all the important highlights and everything that happen all throughout part 1, and it's just in the opening alone. And it was like, I thought that was cool. I actually kind of like the idea that it was even 3D animated. You know, it's like, because I've seen where they try to do like 3D animation, but they still try to make it look 2D, and it's just like, you know, it's really ugly. Exactly. It's really ugly looking and stuff. I was like, no, this one was actually pretty good, but I think it was because they were using a lot of it for, like, you know, there was a lot of energy and everything to it, which I think is why it helps.
Right. It's like, I honestly did not mind the art style that they did with the 3D animated opening cinematic. It's because it's 3D animated in an anime. Okay, yeah, it's not 2D. Oh no. But it's like, yeah, considering that they designed like the 3D models to maintain that manga look, like as they came out for the manga itself, it still really stands out in my opinion.
Let alone the details. I mean, like the character renders in the opening are gorgeous looking, and it's like, I mean, that's not to say that the animation throughout the rest of the show is bad. It's pretty damn good, but the details and everything, because it's clear that they are following the actual manga aesthetic and everything. I mean, that's like, it's mind-blowing how well it looks. Like, it's like, at times I actually kind of wished that maybe the whole show was like this. I can understand why they couldn't, because, you know, it'd be expensive as all hell. But I mean, there's just so moments, like, again, that house fire fight. I would have loved to have seen that house fire fight rendered out in the same style as the opening. I think that would have been amazing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and you know, and the song wasn't too bad too. I mean, it's like, you know, granted, like, the only part that I think anybody remembers is the very last line.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Sono Chino Sadame. Yeah, that's the name of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not a bad song by any means, but it's like, yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those hit songs where it's like, it's good, but you'll only remember just one part of that song. And that of course ending. Is the ending part.
Yeah, it's when they say that title, like, what's it called again?
Sono Chino Sadame.
Yeah, like, they say that, and then it's like, you know, you get, like, you know, they sing that, and then it just goes, JoJo! And it's like, fuck yeah! So it's like, you know,
pretty much.
It's like, you know, I mean, the rest of the song is cool and all and everything, but I mean, it's like, I can't tell you how many times, like, even when I'm at work, like, because, you know, we don't work with, for whatever reason, every other department in our bakery has, like, you know, one of those, like, speakers that they're playing Pandora, but our department doesn't. So I'm constantly having music, like, I'm kind of humming to myself and everything, because I'm one of those people that's, like, working in silence drives me nuts. I actually maintain focus better when I'm listening to, like, music or something. So a lot of times I find myself just, like, humming random shit to myself, and it's like, since I started watching JoJo, I can't tell you how many times, like, I'll just be working and all I'm humming is that last part.
Oh, trust me, it's like, when it comes to, like, the themes that they've used for, like, the anime through parts 1 through 4, it's like, I kid you not, it's like, as different as each theme is, it's like, it's surprisingly so goddamn addicting in its own way.
Yeah.
It's like, the music is so goddamn good.
It's like, I know, that's like, I can't wait to see, like, you know, all the other openings that they do.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the themes that they end up using for, like, the openings of the anime, it's like, most of them is like, either they're, like, so upbeat that it's like, okay, I'm pumped up to see the show, so it gives you a bit of an energetic kind of mood in a way. Others are just like, okay, this is nice, and it's really goddamn, I love the beat, and it's how catchy it is. Yeah, I can definitely get into this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one opening in part 4 that is like, okay, I'm sorry. It's like, it's bland. It's like it's kind of like I'm listening to a Naruto opening theme.
Really?
I will say that.
All right. I'll wait until we get to part 4 and judge for myself.
Right. But suffice it to say, it's like, even though Sono Chino Sadame is an opening, it's like, it's not as popular compared to other hit songs that they've used in the openings throughout the future parts. It's like, no, Sono Chino Sadame does a really good job in having that giving you that upbeat, energetic feeling that is like, oh, fuck yeah, I want to watch this show.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, but in which case, yeah, it's like, I think to end things off, like, like, going back to, like, our initial thoughts on part 1 overall, I mean, it's like, yeah, granted, it has been a while since I've watched the entirety of part 1, because, yeah, as we established earlier, it's like, yeah, compared to future parts, yeah, part 1 is not as memorable as others, but don't get me wrong, it's still a fantastic part, because, of course, part 1 is the one that started it all, obviously enough. And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty much on Dani with this one for the most part. It's like, yeah, I loved how they put a lot of focus on both the relationship between Jonathan and Dio, like, throughout the first few episodes. Not to say that I have to completely disregard the whole process with the hormone training, because of course that will play that'll lead more towards a part 2, like once we get around to doing so. Yeah, hormone also hangs around in part 2, so of course it plays an important role. But it's like, yeah, everything else in between, it's like, yeah, it's not like really all that interesting or that memorable, like the henchmen that we ran into, like Jack the Ripper and all that such. But yeah, it's like, yeah, the characters are interesting enough. And yeah, the overall concept of part 1, it's yeah, again, it makes its own unique in its own way. And it's just an overall relatively good part to start off. Again, it's a decent start.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I said, you know, it hasn't deterred me from wanting to look into the rest of it, you know, so I'm like, all right, let's go.
Right.
If only to see Dio return. Let's go.
Right. But I mean, it's like alongside the return of Dio or whatnot, it's like, no, I can only imagine once we get more with part 2 and we dive into Joseph Joestar, I think I can only imagine, I can only hope that Dio won't be the only reason why you would want to watch more of JoJo, like even after part 2.
Okay.
Right, alright, but with that being said, that'll pretty much do it for part 1 of this series of JoJo SNG discussions and whatnot. So thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, whichever one you prefer. And join us next time as we dive into part 2, Battle Tendency.
Whenever we do get around to finishing watching it.
Yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and finish up. Let's go ahead and begin watching part 2.
Yes.
We will see you guys then.
Let's fucking go.